Hello and welcome to FinextraTV's Thought Leadership Series. I'm Hannah Wallace, and kindly joining us on the call today is Raphael Barisaac, UniCredit's Global Co-Head for Trade Finance. Hello Raphael, thank you very much for joining the call today.
Thank you for having me in.
No problem at all. So we're going to be talking about dematerialising trade finance during COVID-19. So the first question I really want to ask you is what the impact of COVID-19 has had on the future of corporate finance and liquidity requirements. Let's start there.
Well, I mean, for sure, as the economy has slowed down due to COVID-19, corporates have increasingly looked into financing and to help them to plug liquidity gap while the revenues were completely down. It makes, in a way, the financing absolutely critical function for continuing running the business. And what we saw also constantly for all the corporates is the request to have liquidity for their daily operations, as they were not able also to foresee what would be the future in really short term. And therefore, the requirements to fill this gap was a very big one and a very instant one. And I think all of us, in UniCredit, but also in an industry, were scale up in order to stand with the demand.
Mm-hmm. And of course, here we are working remotely, but with that comes some practical issues, especially around security and risk. So can you tell us what those are and whether we're looking at business as usual now?
Having been in this working remotely now for 3 months and more, I would say, it's the new normal. And being in the new normal, in a way, showed to us a couple of things. First of all, I think as an industry overall, to support the entire businesses while having this crisis, to be able to run the operations, to be able to run the supply chains, to be able to perform the trade finance activities, we were regarded as highly successful. All in all, I would say that the results have been highly satisfactory. The machine is working remotely, okay? And this is the bottom line. And when we talk about the bottom line and we look for the future, since it's something that is going to be our norma, we have to see how we are going to industrialize and standardize all the emergency measures that were applied in this area during these times in order to overcome, for example, the need of a use for the physical paper. So we saw, for example, some customs allowing to use a copy of paper under which in the past they were always requiring a physical paper because they need to release from the ports some emergency goods for the people. Mm-hmm. So the question, the key question would be, will this new norma become the new standard post-COVID-19 or post-phase 2? Is very, very interesting for us to know. And as an industry, we really hope that as many governments and many bodies, regulators will adopt as much as possible these emergency measures to become the new norma and the new standard.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's safe to say the journey towards dematerializing trade finance has been a rather long one and one we've been on for a while now. Can you tell us where are we up to today and what does success look like?
Well, to be frank, this is a very frustrating question for trade people that are in the business for many years. The industry, in short, was not able to really streamline an end-to-end, I would say, dematerialization process. And this is because there was always one flaw that was not being part of the entire chain, and therefore you always needed to use a paper at a certain point of time. Therefore, the success of this was always in a micro areas of bilateral, trilateral, or a group of dealing only with part of the process, but never end-to-end to the process. The COVID-19 in that respect required two things. First of all, it requires a lot of, for example, customs in the past, not allowing to release goods without a paper to do so because they had food that they needed to provide it to the people. Mm-hmm. So they showed that in the times of emergency, it was possible actually to allow some of the activities to take place without the paper. Mm-hmm. Now the question, what will happen post the crisis? Meaning, are we going to industrialize that and use this crisis in really to bring up to date the industry with what was evident is possible to do, meaning to digitize the entire end-to-end flow, even if it is very cumbersome and tedious, or unfortunately, I would say to go back to old habit and said, okay, now that we are going out of the lockdowns back into the new norma, that we are going back to use the same old paperwork that was required also in the past. Local governments, if I may add, also enabled locally to use digital signature in cases that in the past was not so agile and able to do, for example, also in Italy in that respect. And therefore, post the crisis, the question would be, are we able to make this now as the new norma, meaning that we are now doing this on an industrial way, or we will see again the regulators, the government bodies going back into the old days and say, no, you still need to go to the very restrictive rules of using some paperwork in some areas that will still always impede the overall end-to-end dematerialization process.
Some interesting decisions ahead there, especially for the regulators. All right, now given the complexity of managing supply chains and financing trade, how advanced are banks to digitizing their solutions for their clients, do you think?
Well, I would say that the client-bank relationship is, in a way, in a corporate world, almost completely digitized. In the trade area, for example, if I look at our group that supports all the variety of clients, from large multinationals to small SME or small clients in our core markets, we offer a complete digital channel to our clients. Our clients don't need to move from their chair if they want to interact with us and perform any type of trade and finance-related activity related to trade. They need to log into our portal, which is fully secured, and use the trade finance TF Gate application that we offer them, which also digitize the entire client bank paperwork that they need to sign. So it's not just the trade application, but also all the documents that are required by the local regulator and the bank to be signed once a customer is applying for a letter of credit, for example, is always completely digitized with not any need to use of any type of paperwork. There is a two-way completely communication, which is allowing also the bank to send documents to the clients and vice versa, and enables them really to use all the flexibility and ability of a digital tool without any need of a physical document.
Well, finally then, and following on from that quite nicely, what are banks doing to automate the complexities of trade processing and operations, and how radical are they being in their use of digital technology? Also, what are the benefits?
In order to be sustainable in a business, a trade business, which is becoming ever more difficult in order to comply with all the compliance, etc. I mean, let's say the leading trade finance banks for sure have to take some actions internally in order to standardize their operation and to make them completely digital. I am happy to share with you that in UniCredit, we have initiated a project called TFO, Trade Finance Operation, which includes the implementation of an artificial intelligence and machine learning internally from the arrival of the documents to become completely digital up into the full screening, extract of the data from the document into our different compliance and back office systems in order to make sure that it is streamlined to the operator that is actually going eventually to complete the transaction in the back office. This is a journey that requires a change of culture by the processors and operators. And I'm happy to say that now that we are way into the progress of implementing it into our third country, I would say, in our group, that the results are outstanding and fantastic. And I would say that you're able to see it only once it is already working for some time, because it is not something that you start switch on and everything is now working in a different way, because you accumulate the knowledge of the documents within the machine learning and artificial intelligence. So the more you process, the more you see the results. The more you see the results, the more it becomes efficient. The more it becomes efficient, it allows your people to invest their time in a different type of activities.
Brilliant. Well, some really exciting developments ahead then as well, I think it's safe to say. Raphael, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining the call today and sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.